If there was any new character to completely shift the meta only 1 month into its release, it's no better character than Sosuke Aizen. Because Aizen is the newest SSR character release, a spirit-type tactical unit with the main role of being a sub-DPS providing millions of damage, but also supporting the team with added effects. And what makes it even better is that Aizen can be really used in any team you want to. It's a very flexible unit, but definitely excels in spirit-type teams, one specifically consisting of Toshiro and also Momo. He really feels like the missing piece to a team that is now probably considered the best team in the entire game, rivaling the go-to Slash-type team. But why exactly is that? Well, let's have a brief look at Aizen as a character, because there's a lot to go over here. I mean, you can just see that from the character's skill page alone. But this isn't just any skill page. It might as well be the entirety of Bleach with the amount of text on our screen right now. I'm not gonna lie. We're only 1 month into the game. What are characters going to be looking like a year from now? But to keep it simple, Aizen is many a character is going to be dealing damage through his battlefield skill. This is the main way that you are going to provide value for your team, whether that's on-field or off-field. And that's important to know, because Aizen has 2 different battlefield skills, and 2 different gauges with that in mind too. When the character is on field, you will be gaining battlefield skill energy every time you attack an enemy. The amount of energy you have is indicated by the number of the button. Once you reach 100, you can let off his battlefield skill, Hado 90. However, what makes this character unique is that if you decide to use the character off-field, so let's say for example you're attacking with Toshiro or any other main DPS character, you will be then filling up the suppression gauge, and that is the gauge on the left of his battlefield skill button. So this suppression gauge can only be filled by attacking with other allies, and when this gauge is full, using this button will immediately switch into Aizen, and he would then deal a powerful attack. Now, depending on the attack that you do use it, you will apply a different effect. If you are on field and use Hado 90, you'll be applying 1 stack of Ravage on the enemy that it has hit. Now, Ravage as an effect will lower the all type resistance for 15 seconds, meaning any character, regardless of their typing, would deal more damage to that enemy after Aizen does use Hado 90. If you use his backline battlefield skill, alongside dealing damage, you will also then increase the spirit damage for your team for 15 seconds. In terms of damage output, the on-field Hado 90 battlefield skill does deal more damage, but luckily you don't need to choose which one you want to use. You will be constantly using both when you possibly can. Now, while attacking with Aizen, thanks to his core passive effect, the Battle of Spiritual Pressure, you'll be able to gain Spiritual Pressure stacks by finishing the final attack of his basic combo. Every time you finish a basic attack combo, you will gain 1 stack of Spiritual Pressure, and it does cap out at 3. This is indicated by the bottom of your screen, which usually is the Spiritual Pressure gauge for most characters. Upon landing the last strike of his basic attack, once you already have 3 Spiritual Pressure stacks, you will then activate Spiritual Domination, and during that time, you are going to gain resistance to being interrupted while attacking, and also Perfect Dodge will be auto-triggered for most incoming attacks. And while in this Spiritual Pressure Domination form, anytime you gain more Spiritual Pressure stacks, they will then be turned into enhanced Spiritual Pressure stacks, which are indicated by these small fragment-like pieces at the bottom of the screen. Now, the cap for that is free. However, if you do have access to Aizen's core stamp, you can get upwards to 3 extra stacks, so 6 in total. And these stacks are important because whenever you do use the character's battlefield skill, Hado 90 in particular, if you have 3 or more enhanced Spiritual Pressure stacks, you will consume all 3, and for the next 8 seconds, any ally that you switch into will automatically trigger a counterattack. And this is actually very important for his core team because there are 2 characters in particular that want to get off counterattacks. But it's also worth mentioning, depending on the amount of enhanced Spiritual Pressure stacks consumed, your team will gain stacks of Illusion Shield, upwards to 3 stacks. An Illusion Shield significantly increases the interruption resistance, and while also taking damage, you will consume 1 of those stacks to gain invincibility for 1 second. So not only is he providing good damage for the characters, he's also providing good survivability too, essentially granting invincibility for any of your allies. And that, for the most part, is the most complicated part about the character. The rest is fairly straightforward. His technique will deal damage in front of him, while also gaining 1 Spiritual Pressure stack. However, once you do use this technique, you will then have the option to use an additional technique or his special attack. Damage-wise, they are pretty identical in terms of the numbers they are putting up. The special attack, Hado 63 Raikuho, though, will be doing a little bit more damage, with the advantage of also grouping in the enemies. Ultimately, which one you want to do, your special attack or second part of the technique, really comes down to you, but for the most part, they'll be dealing the same amount of damage, while also once more providing 1 extra spiritual pressure stack. Now once this character gains enough ultimate energy, he can then activate it to unleash Kyoka Sugetsu. And while under this state, the character itself will automatically be in spiritual domination, so anytime this character is attacking, he will be gaining enhanced spiritual pressure stacks. But also it does mean that if this character takes any damage, a perfect dodge will automatically be triggered. But the most important thing about this Kyoka Sugetsu form is that Aizen can no longer use his on-field battlefield skill. Instead, what's going to happen is that Hado 90 would then be activated through the character's basic attack, at least for the very first time. The first 3 hits will be very different. It will also combine Hado 63 Raikuho and then finish up with the Hado 90 effects. It's a very cool combination and also is capable of dealing some really good damage. Now once you do activate Hado 90, remember you are then encouraged to switch out to other characters as they will get a free use of a counterattack. Additionally, while Kyoka Sugetsu is active, thanks to his false perception passive effect, he will be increasing their attack upwards to 15%. But switching out to other characters is very important because remember, his backline battlefield skill gauge does get filled up upon attacking with other allies. And while under Kyoka Sugetsu, you then get access to a new backline battlefield skill. For comparison's sake, his normal backline battlefield skill will only deal damage upwards to 200% of his attack. But while Kyoka Sugetsu is active, he will gain I Will Stand Atop the Heavens, which can deal damage upwards to 1400% of his attack stat. And it goes without saying this can be further increased the more you level up the skill. Keep in mind that the suppression gauge itself, which determines how much damage this skill can do, does get doubled, so you do need to actively use other characters to fill this up, all within the 18-second time the character has Kyoka Sugetsu activated. Once you let off the attack though, as expected, it's going to deal millions of potential damage. This, for the most part, can be served as the character's main ultimate attack, so it's very important you get that backline skill off while Kyoka Sugetsu is active. And that's essentially Aizen in a nutshell. When it comes to the character's recommended skill build, definitely focus on increasing the character's passive level, battlefield skill, and also technique. The most important one here is definitely the battlefield skill, because this is the main way the character is going to be dealing damage. Like always, if you want to max out the character, you can do that. Get every skill to the highest level it can be brought to, but if you are limited on resources, the main ones you want to upgrade is the passive, battlefield skill, and also technique. When it comes to the character's weapon stamp, like every character, you definitely want the character's exclusive weapon stamp before we realized. This effect will increase the character's critical rate by 25%. It would also increase his allies' counterattack damage by an additional 12.5%, and will also increase the cap of his enhanced spiritual pressure stacks from 3 to 6. This overall will increase the amount of damage that you can deal on his Hado 90 battlefield skill. And remember, any enemy that is hit by Hado 90 will also gain a Ravage stack. This will lower their all-type damage resistance. But through the weapon stamp, each stack of Ravage will also reduce the enemy's spirit resistance. So overall, you're going to be dealing more damage. Now it doesn't end there, because the last effect makes it so when you do use a battlefield skill, you will gain 3 stacks of spiritual pressure. Now you will also get an added effect, and this depends on how many spiritual pressure stacks you do already have. If you have no spiritual pressure stack, well, you will gain those 3 and instantly activate spiritual domination. If you already have 3 spiritual pressure stacks, you will then gain 3 more stacks and also enter spiritual pressure domination. So his weapon stamp is definitely going to be important, more so for his damage output, but also again further increasing the team's damage output. If you don't have access to his weapon stamp, the next best thing is going to be Chanting Spirit, which offers 15% more attack for spirit characters. You really don't have much to work with here. For the character's recommended core stamp, of course you are going to want to use his exclusive one, that being Unrivaled. Now this also has a lot of text to go through, but essentially, when the character does use an ultimate, the on-field character, whether that's himself or the allies, will gain 1 stack of illusion. And each time that character lands an additional hit, they will gain another stack of illusion. The amount of illusion stacks they can gain caps out at 10, but each stack of illusion grants 0.5% more spirit damage, so essentially capping out at 5% more damage. This will, however, only last as long as Kyoka Sugetsu does last, so essentially 18 seconds. But, and it's a big but here, when you do activate a counterattack from switching characters, which is triggered by his passive effects, specifically when you do use Hado 90, the newly switched on-field character will inherit all of those stacks, and the cap is now doubled, up to 40 stacks. And if you do reach all 40 stacks of illusion, you will then gain a 25% critical damage boost. So again, very important you are taking advantage of the Hado 90 effect, which does let you switch into other allies, activating counterattacks. But the last effect here, at least is fairly simple, is that while you are under spiritual domination, which again is fairly easy to get into, Aizen's basic attack, technique, and counterattacks will deal 100% more damage. If you don't have access to that, the next best thing probably will be to use one of these back-to-back combat, which will further increase the amount of damage that you can deal on a battlefield skill. Or you could maybe use Lesson 3 Clade, which grants an attack boost for your team once you do use a battlefield skill. None of these are nearly as good as Aizen's core stamp, so it is important you can eventually get that. Now when it comes to Aizen's recommended stamp set, he is actually the first character in the game to introduce a new stamp set specifically for him in mind. So you do want to try and get a measurable gap, and this stamp set, with the 2-piece effect, will increase his spiritual damage by 11%. The 3-piece set, however, will increase his battlefield skill damage by 30%, and each time a battlefield skill is released, increases all damage by 10%, and the damage of the next 2 counterattacks from teammates is increased by 20%, lasting 10 seconds. So the perfect set for Aizen, increasing his overall damage output, specifically also his battlefield skill damage, but also increasing the allies' damage output whenever you do activate their counterattacks. And if we have a close look at each stamp, slot number 1, you definitely want to go with spirit damage or attack as the main basic stat, with the advanced stats ideally being attack, critical rate, critical damage, and also ultimate charge rate, because getting your ultimate faster is never a bad thing. For slot 2, you want to go with either critical rate or critical damage. Really depends on how much crit rate, crit damage you do get through the advanced stats through your specific slot 2 piece or slot 1 and 3. With me, for example, right now we are going with critical damage, but more often than not, I do go with critical rate. But this piece in particular, by the way, is actually very powerful. And if you do want to go the extra mile and evolve your 5-star stamp to a 6-star rarity, then the main passive you are looking for is anything that is increasing a battlefield skill damage, like I very fortunately got on this particular piece. And then for the last stamp, stamp number 3, I would recommend attack percentage. The character itself gains his ultimate charge rate relatively fine, so you don't need to focus on that like you do for characters like Ichigo, for example. So just going with attack percentage is definitely ideal. Currently, I'm still working on that, hoping to find a better piece that offers more better and ideal advanced stats. Now, when it comes to the team that you want to build with Aizen, Aizen is very fortunate and something that we never expected to see so soon early in this game's lifespan. And this is honestly what makes Aizen one of the best, if not the best character in the game, is that his team effect is not specifically to one typing. The standard here for SSR tactic units is that they do offer 30% more damage for that particular typing, and it also does come at the requirement of having that character and 2 of those characters in the same typing. So with Kaname, for example, you had to have Kaname in the team, and you had to have 2 Frost characters. With Aizen, the requirement is only Aizen. But also, it's giving every character 30% more damage. This means, in a way, Aizen can be used in any team you really want to. He does focus on boosting spirit-type characters. Most of he further boosts their damage output, but he is also offering effects that increase everyone's damage output. Like, for example, his passive effect that while under Kokosugetsu, you do gain an attack boost, and the Ravage stacks themselves upon using Hado 90 do lower all type resistance. So if you really wanted to, you can build a team like this with Bankai Ichigo. You can use a team like Yoruichi. Wherever your main DPS character is going to be now or in the future, Aizen can really just slot into any team. But of course, ideally, the main team you want to use with Aizen is going to be either this, a spirit-focused team using Kisuke as well for more damage, or you can also use Momo. I'm actually really liking Momo right now, so personally I am using a team like this. Now the best part about this particular team is how well the team works together, especially when you are doing the rotations very fast. Remember, Aizen in particular, after using Hado 90, does allow access to free counterattacks with Momo and also Toshiro. That's important, because Momo's counterattack does allow for more spirit damage, and then Toshiro, thanks to his recent buff today, upon using a counterattack, it will allow him to instantly activate his Tensou Jurin form. So with that in mind, the way I like to do my rotation, if we do it a bit slow just to quickly explain it and then we'll do it much faster, I like to use the technique into 2 special attacks. I'm then going to use Aizen's backline battlefield skill, followed up by his technique. After the attack is finished, I'm then switching into Toshiro, using his technique, doing it correctly too, so I can instantly activate his Tensou Jurin form. And by the time you finish his Tensou Jurin form, you will then be able to instantly activate Aizen's backline battlefield skill once more. And after those uses, his Hado 90 battlefield skill will then be able to be used. So we'll go ahead and use that. And in some cases, if the ultimate charges up fast enough, you can use that. But you can just continue the rotation, switch into Momo, activate the ultimate. This will give a crit rate boost. Go back into Toshiro, instantly activate his Tensou Jurin form. So continue on through that. Go back to Aizen. Once more, use the skills. And then now, you can activate the ultimate. Follow that up with his basic attack combo, which will activate Hado 90. And then we can switch into Momo if we want to. Or we can switch into Toshiro, whatever you want to do. Let's activate Tensou Jurin. And it's around this point where Toshiro can then activate his Bankai pretty much soon after. And we also do now have 40 stacks of the illusion. So we are now getting more crit damage. So we use our basic attack, technique. But we also want to make sure we use the backline battlefield skill right before the timer does end. And that is then going to deal 400k damage. But, you know, right now we are only in trading. And that's basically the rotation. So let's go ahead and restart that. All right, then. So first up, let's use the technique into 2 special attacks. Back into Aizen. Follow up with the double technique effects. Again, you can use the special attack if you want to. Switch into Toshiro. Then do his Tensou Jurin form. And by the time this finishes, we get to use Aizen's battlefield skill once more. There we go. Use the technique again. At this point in time, we get to activate his Hado 90 effect. Switch into Momo. Use the ultimate there. Back into Toshiro. I mean, again, if you want to, you can use the Aizen ultimate before this. But I don't mind doing this particular rotation. Back into Aizen. Do the attacks. Into ultimate. Really cool animations here. We don't really need to go back into Momo here. But we will just activate the counter attack. There we go. Back into Tensou Jurin. We are now building up a bunch of stacks here. Activate the ultimate. Use our basic attacks. Skill into technique. Use Aizen's ult when we can. Maybe to be fair, you might want to use Toshiro's ultimate before that. But we can go into Toshiro's ult, just use that. And we do million damage. And then we can also finish up with his technique. And by this point, we can get another use of Hado 90. And you just pretty much repeat the rotation. There's definitely some flexibility here. Momo does allow for a lot of time to be spent on other characters. But it's a very fun team. If you did pull for Toshiro, Aizen is a very powerful additional piece to the team, while also making Toshiro a better character. And if we have a look at the damage that we did do here, again, in this case, everyone's damage is going to look different, but for the most part, across the board, it will look fairly similar. Toshiro, of course, is the main DPS of the team. He, after all, will be dealing most of the damage. But thanks to Aizen on the team, we're also able to get significantly more damage from the team itself. If you were using Rukia, for example, the previous go-to spirit-type sub-DPS unit, she will not be putting up numbers like Aizen. She will be providing effects by freezing, which is nice quality life to have in combat. But Aizen will be providing millions of damage, pretty much almost what Toshiro can deal. But also remember, due to the effects that Aizen does have, he's also allowing Toshiro to deal more damage too. This is only the start for what is already a very powerful team, but that's pretty much Aizen in a nutshell. He's a fairly simple character, a sub-DPS that has a lot of on-field presence, really cool animations, and capable of doing some really good numbers. Maybe not as high as numbers as Toshiro and also Ichigo, but that is ultimately fine because he is filling the role as a sub-DPS and also allowing the main DPS characters to deal more damage. So any millions of damage that this character can provide is going to be really good regardless. I think ultimately right now he's one of the most fun characters in the entire game. I have been having a blast playing with this unit. They've perfectly adapted Aizen into this game to the likes that we've never seen before in any Bleach game. And right now, in my opinion, Spirit Team is one of the best teams in the game, but also one of the most fun teams in the game too. But while he is focused on making the Spirit type team better, he's not restricted to that particular team. You really can throw him into any team. So I feel like Aizen is going to have a lot of staying power in the meta, because honestly, all type 30% damage just for having him in the team is absolutely insane. Only 1 month into the game's lifespan. This is something that I would expect from a year anniversary character, but no, we're getting it only a month later. Either way, really cool unit. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.